Yo, boys, today we are going to be doing a Pokemon game tier list. So, with Pokemon Day coming up this Tuesday, I thought, why not make a tier list of all of the Pokemon games? Because I'm expecting that this Pokemon Day live stream or announcement is going to announce some new games. Probably either Unova remakes or Johto remakes. So, why not go through everything that's come before this and rank it? So on this tier list, there are actually some games that I haven't played because I was too young to play them back then. So I'm not going to be rating those, I'm going to just put those in the haven't played tier, and that's Pokemon Blue and Red, Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Gold and Silver, Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Pokemon Crystal. So everything else on here, I've dabbled in. Some of them I haven't played as much as the others because there are some games that are my favorites. And I didn't start in order either. I started with Pokemon Black and White. This was my first Pokemon game, and it was pretty much the first game I got when I had a DS. And to me, still to this day, these games hold up really well. The whole plot with N and him essentially being the champion, and the whole animal abuse take on Pokemon was really interesting to me, especially as a child. And I feel like Pokemon Black and its successor Pokemon Black and White 2 to this day still have the best story that Pokemon has produced. And that's exactly why I'm really hyped in case we get a Unova remake on Pokemon Day. So, specifically with Black and White, we were limited by the Pokedex to only Unova, which kind of hindered my enjoyment a little bit because I wanted to use a bunch of other Pokemon as well. It was still really good, but I'd have to give Black and White essentially an A tier in the solid tier. But more than this game, I played Pokemon Black and White 2. I absolutely love these games. These games, I spent over 1,500 hours on these games, and back then I could only play video games on the weekends. I was restricted to 1 to 2 hours on the weekends and holidays, and sometimes on Friday. So I have 1,000 hours on this game just from Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So I've absolutely loved this game. Everything about this game just improved on Black and White. And obviously you have the complete decks. You have White Kyurem and Black Kyurem, which were really, really, really cool Pokemon to me. Fusing Reshiram and Zekrom with Kyurem was such a cool idea to me. And the story in this game was also really, really good. Team Plasma to this day is one of my favorite Pokemon villain groups, just because their motivation, the way they're kind of portrayed in game is really interesting to me, and I genuinely really enjoyed these games. So for me, Black and White 2 is definitely GOAT tier. It's definitely the top of the spectrum of Pokemon for me. I don't think there's a single game on here, I'm telling you right now, I don't think there's a single game on here that beats Pokemon Black and White 2 for me. So the game I actually played after this was Pokemon Heartgold and Soulsilver. I played these around the same time as Black and White because these were obviously older games. I had both of them, but I played Black and Black and White 2, all those earlier, just because, well, it was the newer game at the time. But Heartgold and Soulsilver, for me, another S tier GOAT game because they took Johto, and obviously you had the extra area where you could go back to Kanto. You had essentially 2 regions packed into one game, so it already improved upon the original Gold and Silver, which I didn't play, but I know through watching YouTube that Soulsilver and Heartgold essentially were direct upgrades, and everything about this game was just so nice. The whole bug catching arena or something, I don't remember the exact name, but that to me was pretty cool. The whole like you train up your Pokemon to do all these like competitions. That was a pretty fun mini game to me, at least. Something about this game it just felt right. It clicked for me, and I just loved exploring this game. It just felt satisfying to have such a wide area to explore and just, you know, go through. So for me, that's an S tier. Now the games I played after this were Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. For me, Diamond and Pearl, probably like a mid tier. I really liked the Elite Four and obviously Champion Cynthia in this game, because obviously it was hella challenging. And to me, as a kid, I enjoyed that. But specifically with the whole Dialga, Palkia, Arceus, Giratina lore, I really like Platinum more than these games, and I'd have to give it the solid A tier because of the Distortion World and everything that Platinum added on top of Diamond and Pearl. Which, don't get me wrong, Diamond and Pearl were very solid games. Like, they were pretty good games for their time. But looking back on it now, I just feel like they were like average Pokemon games. It wasn't like the top, but it wasn't that bad either. I played Pokemon XD. I didn't play this game as extensively as I did other games, but I had a friend who had this game, and I'd go over to his house and we'd grind this game out. I don't remember the story or the plot or anything about the game that well. I just remember having fun. I'm looking at it completely through nostalgic glasses, but for me, this is a solid A tier. Now next up is Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. This kind of falls in a similar vibe to Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, except me personally, I actually genuinely enjoyed Ruby and Pearl just as much as I did Emerald. Like, to me, all three of these games were just very solid and just brought something new. But considering some of the later games on here, I'd still have to give Ruby the mid tier while Emerald gets the A tier because of specifically Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby. Because the whole Rayquaza post-game quest in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, along with Megas being one of my favorite mechanics in Pokemon of all time, even though they were hella unbalanced and not good for the metagame, they look so cool. They were just such a cool thing to have in the game. So I'd have to put Ruby and Sapphire in mid tier. Once again, not bad games, but comparatively, looking back on it, it is that average tier, with Emerald going above, and once again Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby also going above. Obviously with updated graphics, the whole flying around on Latias, I think, I thought that was really cool. You could just fly around. It was essentially almost free roaming when you were in that flying mode, which I thought was a really cool feature. The only other game I played that has that, like Pokemon wise, is Pokemon Insurgence, which is another game I really love because everything, even though it's like not really a 3D game, that flying mechanic is essentially there, and the lore, the game, all of the content the game has just makes it that appealing. So after this, I played Pokemon X and Y, and Yveltal is one of my favorite legendaries. Same with Xerneas. These Pokemon were hella broken in the competitive game, and I feel like that kind of reflects how I feel about this game. It just felt like it just did not feel like a complete game. It felt like there were so many more things they wanted to do with this game. It was the first game that was like true 3D, I guess, which was pretty huge for Gamefreak at the time. But this is one of those games that just felt really easy to play through, but didn't feel like satisfying to play through. It was just a game that like I did not look back fondly upon. It's not something that I really enjoyed, other than the huge difference of obviously having 3D and introducing Megas, which were really hype. The actual content of the game and the story itself, I did not personally enjoy. So I'm going to put this in below average tier just for the introduction of 3D and Megas. Instead of trash tier, I put it in below average just because it introduced these new concepts that essentially started shaping 3D Pokemon. Now, Pokemon Sun and Moon. This game, I also played this game a lot. Specifically because at this time I was trying to dabble into competitive Pokemon. I was trying to get all these shinies, all these Eevee and Ivy trained Pokemon, and grind the game out for everything that it offered so that I could then go and play Pokemon competitively. Story-wise, it was an alright story. It didn't feel like really good like Black and White and Black and White 2, but it didn't really feel that bad either. It just felt like an average game. So I'm going to put that in mid-tier. But Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, on the other hand, these games, I know there's sequels, I know it added the whole Ultra Necrozma plotline, and I think Ultra Necrozma to this day is one of the coolest boss fights that we've ever had in Pokemon. Because going up those stairs to see this dude just there, and then the whole boss fight where it was actually kind of hard to beat him, it was just such a crazy feeling. But I don't feel like the Ultra Necrozma added enough to the game to warrant it to be higher than Sun and Moon, or even the same level as Sun and Moon, because it just felt like the same thing with like a couple of other nice additions, but it didn't really feel like a second version, you know? Like, Black and White 2 feels almost completely different to Black and White. It just feels like that new game, and it feels like it added so much to the game that put it up above. But for Ultra Sun and Moon, I definitely have to put it underneath Sun and Moon, at least. I wouldn't necessarily say it's trash tier. I still had fun. I still like enjoyed it, but I can't really say that it's that good either. Now, Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu. Personally, I did not like the Let's Go style catching of Pokemon, but the graphics on this game were beautiful. The graphics on this game are what they should have used in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and it would have made it 10 times better. It would have been a very solid remake that they could have added more onto, but they ended up just one-for-oneing the original game in Chibi. So, in that sense, I could first rank Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. For me, personally, these games are trash. Like, if I wanted to play Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I'd probably just go play their original Pearl and Diamond. Like, this game really didn't add that much to it, and me personally, I didn't like the chibi models. Going back to Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, these games, they were different, right? The Let's Go franchise is pretty different from the main style of all the other games, but me personally, I personally did not really enjoy this game. Like, it was alright. It was... I see why you'd enjoy it. And I see why you'd want to play it. But for me personally, it was just not my cup of tea, so it's going in below average. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention. Sun and Moon, they introduced Z crystals. Although Z crystals were kind of cool, they just felt hella broken and just... It was not really that memorable. Like, some of the special Z moves were kind of cool, but otherwise it was not that memorable. But yeah, going back to Sword and Shield, Galar, this game introduced Dynamaxing, and Dynamaxing, personally, it's not one of my favorite mechanics. It makes some of the Pokemon cool when they have their Gigantamax form, but Dynamaxing in general is just like kind of boring to me. you take one Pokemon and just make it bigger. It's like, so what? But I know competitively, Dynamaxing is a lot better than Megas or Z moves. So I see why on the competitive aspect this game was really good. But the story of this game also wasn't that great. I feel like there was stuff they could have done to this story to make it much better. The whole Darkest Day, we could have expanded on the whole Eternatus thing. And the post-story quest was laughably terrible. Like the whole Swordbert and Shieldbert thing, that was just so laughably bad. I did not, like, I barely remember what happened in that. It was just that bad. I like deleted it from my memory. We went from like really good post game, from like Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, to Sun and Moon's like decent post game stuff with the whole Ultra Beast, and then we went to this Swordbert Shieldbert nonsense. So for me personally, I probably need to give this game a trash tier. I didn't really enjoy this game. Now, Legends Arceus. I fucking love this game. This game was so good. It was the first, I guess, like truly open world Pokemon. This was when they were trying to explore with that open world stuff. The graphics obviously weren't as polished and as good because I know this is Gamefreak's first try at it. I know they have the money to the point where they should be able to make this really highly polished and really good, but I gave them some slack for their first attempt at it because, personally, this was a really good game. Game's mechanics were really unique compared to your normal Pokemon game, where you're not like battling and catching and doing all this stuff all the time, right? The whole catch mechanic was all different. You're running around freely, and I genuinely really enjoyed how this game essentially expanded on Sinnoh's lore. The whole plotline with Volo, one of my favorite characters because of this game, all of that was really, really cool. Origin Palkia, Origin Dialga, and then obviously the Arceus fight. These were insanely cool, and the whole like boss fight thing in this with all like the older forms of all these Pokemon, like the old, I forgot what the actual form name is called, but the old Basculegion, there's Ursaluna, all these Pokemon just, it was really cool seeing how they did this game and how they did the Volo boss fight. That was one of my favorite moments in this game, where you beat Volo, you think you won, and then he just summons out Giratina with 2 forms, and it's like, what the fuck, man? This dude's crazy. Like, truly, he is the predecessor to Cynthia, right? So like, it just runs in that bloodline. But yeah, this game was just really good fun. I know it was also really popular when it came out, and I'm glad I got into the hype train when it did, because God, this game was so good. This is definite S tier. It's GOAT tier. Now, the latest game, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. When this game dropped, there was so much controversy. Like, specifically, they're like, oh, Nintendo's just cash grabbing because they made this game that's essentially unplayable. The graphics are so bad, the FPS is so bad, it's not polished, there's so many bugs. It was just clusterfuck at the start. And I feel like some of these bugs obviously were fixed, but the graphics and the FPS are still a problem to this day. And kind of disappointed that like it hasn't really been fixed that much. I'm hoping that in these next games that they're announcing on Pokemon Day probably are going to have like better graphics and FPS, but I don't know. But disregarding those things, obviously those are something that hurts this game down. But the take on the open world in this game, where it's not really linear, you're not really linearly going through the game. You're allowed to kind of free roam and mix and match all these stories and do whichever part whenever you wanted, until the end where it all like converged into the whole Area Zero time machine stuff that happened with Turo and Sada. I thought that was really cool. And the story for this game, after Black and White 2 and Black and White, I'd say this was my favorite story in all the Pokemon games. The whole Paradox Pokemon thing, to me, was really, really cool. And because of some YouTubers, that hype was just shot way high up. Because I watched certain YouTubers, shout out to Tarantartube, who basically theory crafts and puts all these theories that essentially leads the hype season of this game. It makes the story of this game super hype because you're just theorizing like what can happen here, what can happen there, what's the point of all of this, what's the reason behind this time paradox. I just thought that was really fun, really cool, and good job Gamefreak for like taking this different approach to the story. And the DLC to this game adds so much more that it's like I don't know if I can talk about this game without the DLC, because the DLC adds another one of my favorite characters to exist in the Pokemon franchise. Like, I have some like tops, like I have like N, I have Volo, I have Cynthia, now I have Kieran because of the DLC in this game. Kieran is one of the most compelling and most interesting characters we've had in the Pokemon franchise for a while. Like, Hitakami really built up that nice friendship with Kieran, which was essentially broken at the end of it because this dude was acting like a tsundere essentially, and that kind of leads the story of the second arc, the whole mystery of Area Zero with the whole Terrapagos stuff, where you go to Blueberry Academy, you end up doing stuff there, then you end up battling Kieran, and there's this whole character arc that happens with him that's really, really, really freaking entertaining and really satisfying to go through, just because you just feel good when it's all done. You just feel happy that this dude's character arc is essentially complete by the end of the Terrapagos Area Zero stuff. And Terrapagos in general is, I think, a very cool legendary Pokemon. The whole time paradox and time travel stuff concept is just pretty cool to me, so that's just why I'd have to put this game, only hurt by its real like graphical and FPS issues. It's tanked by the performance and obviously the limitations of the Switch, but the story of this game is SS tier. It is that GOAT tier, but I'm gonna have to put it in A tier, probably top of A tier, right behind like Black and White, right? But I'll just leave it there. I'm holding this so high up because of the DLC, so maybe I should move this based on the DLC. I'm trying to think if Sword and Shield, the Crown Tundra DLC, if it really added enough for it to go up to like below average. I don't think it did. Like, I still don't really have fond memories of this game. There's some modded versions of this game that I saw that looked really fun, and those I would have much higher on the list, but the base original game, not that much. This may be my hot take. This may also be like a hot take, Let's Go Eevee being below average. It's just me personally, I don't like the game. It's just not my thing, because I really enjoy Pokemon battles. There's a reason I got into competitive Pokemon at one point, just because I really enjoyed thinking about the battle and having to like face a strong opponent. That's generally why I enjoyed the Volo fight and the Cynthia fights, because you had to think, you had to have a good team if you were underleveled, because most times you could obviously just train over and just clap everything in the main story, but yeah, you had to think. Just because I'm ranking Colosseum, or not Colosseum, XD based on nostalgia, I would probably bump it down here to mid tier, because I don't know, I don't remember exactly what the game was about. I just remember Shadow Lugia being hella cool and just having good memories of the game, but I can't remember exactly what this game was about. So yeah, this is my Pokemon tier list. I'm hoping that whatever drops on Pokemon Day can go up here in the GOAT tier, the S tier. I'm hoping it's really polished, good graphics, no bugs, good story, maybe Legends Kyurem, something like that. That would be pretty cool. I definitely am going to enjoy the Legends series. But yeah, that's about it. If you guys disagree or agree, put it down in the comments below. And if you're new here, drop a sub, drop a like. And yeah, see you guys later. Peace.